Science. We've been going through this. Here's the topics we've hit on. We're on the last one now, but we've gone through this: the history of evolution, Darwin skeptics today, natural selection, mutations, vestigial organs, the peppered moth, embryo development, ape men, the fossil record, billions of years, homology, the Miller experiment, bird evolution, horse evolution, whale evolution, and now this morning, and likely next week, we will, and maybe the week after, there's quite a few in here. We'll see how it goes, but icons of creation. This is interesting. I am looking forward to this. So, evidence for the Creator from His creation. All right, this presentation is abbreviated from this book here. So there's more material if you want, Seeing the Non-Existent, Evolution's Myths and Hoaxes. In this book, they deal with 35 icons of creation. Today, we're going to look at 2 of them, but these include in the book, the living cell, the human eye, the human brain, blood clotting, the red blood cell, the bombardier beetle, that one's a neat one, the flying feather, bird migration, bird song, the flagellum motor, biometrics. The bombardier beetle shoots out 2 separate chemicals that make an explosion. And if they mixed up within it, it would die, right? So how did that evolve? It's pretty neat. All right. So in this apologetics course, we're going to look at 2 of these icons, the monarch butterfly and the trilobite. So proving the existence of God from the design of life is scriptural. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at what God has done. Romans 1:20, for the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. Okay. From the creation of the world, the invisible things of God are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So people that claim, well, what about those that have never heard of God, that live in the deepest, darkest jungles of Africa or something like that? How unfair. Are you telling me then that if they die without Jesus Christ, they're going to go to hell? I'm not telling you that. God's telling you that. Why? Because we have the revelation of creation. Okay? God has revealed Himself to us. This is called general revelation. Okay, it's not specific, it's general, right? Everyone can see it. Doesn't matter where you live, you can see it. This is why I make this statement before. There has never been a natural-born atheist. Okay, think about that. There's never been a natural-born atheist. It doesn't matter what long-lost tribe they find, they have always worshipped some form of God. Why? Because that is in man. It's put in the heart of man. Okay, the law of God is written in our hearts. And the first one's the first of the 10 commandments, thou shalt have no other gods before me, right? It's in man's heart to worship. Okay, so there's never been a natural-born atheist. We know, we understand just by looking. You can't look at creation. You can't look even if you, in the city, not so much. But if you get into, you go to the mountains where it's clear and not a bunch of, lights and smog and all that, and you get out somewhere where you can look into the sky and you can see the heavens. The Bible says the heavens declare the glory of the Lord. You can't look at all of that and think this was just an accident. Of course, it's perfectly understandable. And then, just everything we see, just the complexity of life, all those types of things are revealed to mankind through general revelation. Okay? And so everyone's accountable to God because of creation. It doesn't matter who you are. All right? So, Hebrews 3:4 says, for every house is builded by some man, but he that built all things is God. So just going again to that general revelation, no one is going to walk up. If you see pallets stacked up with a roof over them, you're going to think, what? That evolved? I mean, wood pallets. Someone's just throwing some shack together, and you see it. You are going to think 100% somebody did that. There's some design in that. It might not be the greatest design, but someone designed it. Right? Any of you parents, you had young kids, or you kids, like I remember doing this. You take over the living room, right? And you build a fort, a blanket fort, right? All the cushions and everything are off of the couch, and you're building a fort. No one's going to walk in and be like, wow, how'd that evolve? That's crazy. No one would think that. As simple and silly as that is, someone designed it. It's not a very good design. It was like a 7-year-old designed it, but there it is. There was a designer behind it. That's common sense, right? That's general revelation. You see a house, there's a builder somewhere. You might never meet the builder. You might never personally know them. But the fact that there's a house tells you there's a builder. It has to mean that, right? Even if I never meet them. So the fact of creation tells me there has to be a God. There has to. Okay? So that's general revelation. Then you get to specific revelation. And this is where we need specific revelation to understand who God is, to know the way of salvation. Okay, that's when we need that. So still a little bit off topic here, but go with me to Hebrews chapter 11, if you would, please. It's not 100% off topic, but I brought something up and I feel like I want to answer it so we're not left maybe wondering in your head like, well, what about this? So we look at people that, don't hear of Jesus Christ, right? And we say, well, what about them? That's not fair. But I said that, well, everyone has general revelation, right? Everyone can be in this world and recognize that there's design in it. There has to be a designer, right? And this is why a lot of, scientists who may not even be Christians will at least recognize that there's intelligent design. Okay? So we're in Hebrews chapter 11. This chapter 11, the theme of the chapter is faith. It's called the Hall of Faith. It lists a bunch of saints from time past that exercise great faith in God. And so they're in what we call the Hall of Faith. The Bible doesn't say that. That's a name we've given to it, the Hall of Faith. The theme of Hebrews chapter 11 is faith. So verse 6 tells us, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and look at this next part, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. God's a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. So first, if you're going to come to God, the Bible says you have to, you can't do it without faith, but he that cometh to God must believe that he is. So you first must believe that he exists, right? So you have to believe that he exists. And then beyond that, it says that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So we'd say, well, what about people that have never heard of Jesus Christ? The gospel's never gotten there. Well, my God says that I will reward those that diligently seek me if they come to me by faith. So I just believe the Bible. I'm a fairly simple person, and I believe what God says right here, and I take it to heart. And I believe then that based on what God says, God's not a liar. Let God be true, but every man a liar. Okay? So God doesn't lie to us. He tells us that he will reward those that diligently seek him if they come to him by faith. The Bible says in Romans chapter 12, God's given to every man a measure of faith. So everybody has faith. Where are we going to place it? So if someone in some place that's never heard of Jesus Christ, never even heard of the God of the Bible, but they recognize God exists and they're like, God, show me who you are. Lord, reveal yourself to me. Please show me. I 100% based on that verse right there, believe God will do that. God will reward them. He rewards those that diligently seek him. He'll send a missionary there. Somehow they're going to get the gospel. I'm not even saying he won't send an angel. He could send an angel there to tell them. That's a possibility. I don't really see him doing a whole lot of that because even in the instances in the book of Acts, when something like that would happen, an angel would intervene. Like let's say Peter, he's in prison. He's locked up in prison. The angel intervenes. Notice the angel doesn't go out and start giving the sermons. The angel doesn't go out and start preaching. He just helps Peter, to escape prison so that Peter can go deliver the message. But God will do whatever he needs to get the message to someone because he rewards those that diligently seek him. That's my answer for that. For those that have never heard of Jesus Christ, what about them? God's just abandoned them. Like, so we get so blessed because we live in a country that hears of Christianity, but they're not born in a country like that. And what about them? Well, that's the biblical answer for it. So hope that makes sense to you. Again, we're using the existence of God from the design of life to prove God. Every house is built by some man, but he that built all things is God. It's biblical to do that. God used that example right there. Sir Isaac Newton said this, in the absence of any other proof, the thumb alone would convince me of God's existence. I'm telling you, tie your thumbs together and then try and tie your shoes. Okay, just like tape your thumb to your hand so you can't use your thumb. Try and tie your shoes. Your hand is just about worthless without a thumb. Grip strength is gone. I mean, think about it. Just try and grab things. Like, can you grab a cup even? Not too well. Not too well. You probably have to do like that because you can't squeeze it. I mean, see how much strength you have with your fingers like that. Try and grab something of any substance. You can't. Like Isaac Newton said, just the thumb alone would convince me of God's existence. What an amazing design that is. So if an individual cannot clearly see God in creation, it is because the mind has been darkened through rebellion. 2 Corinthians 4:4, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. So the God of this world, the devil, he's blinded the minds of those which believe not. Why? Why has he blinded their minds? So the light of the glorious gospel of Christ doesn't shine on them. So they don't come to know Jesus Christ as their Savior. He's put all kinds of roadblocks. It's everything everywhere. It's all over the place. It's from religion to the lusts of the flesh, everything from one span to the other. He'll use all of it to blind people's minds so they don't come to know Christ as their Savior. That's what he does. The obvious design in creation has convinced many scientists that there is a God. So Michael Denton, a PhD in molecular genetics and a molecular geneticist, said this in this book here. Is it really credible that random processes could have constructed a reality which excel in every sense anything produced by the intelligence of man? So when you just look at creation, what we build pales in comparison. Even when we look at like AI technology now, and you've got these robots that do all these things and they can move and things like that, they still pale in comparison to how fluid and how humans can move, the things that we can do. They're not as smooth, it's not as good, it can't like think on its feet like we can, none of those types of things. It is the sheer universality of perfection, the fact that everywhere we look, to whatever depth we look, we find an intelligence and ingenuity of an absolutely transcendent quality which so mitigates against the idea of chance. There's no way it's chance. This is what he's saying as he's looking at creation basically. There's no way that it could be chance. It's too much. Alongside the level of ingenuity and complexity exhibited by the molecular machinery of life, even our most advanced artifacts appear clumsy. There it is. It doesn't compare to what God has made. Now, the monarch butterfly. This is just crazy, the process that they go through. The monarch butterfly is a premier icon of creation. Every detail of this amazing creature points to an almighty creator. So as we go through this, as we look at this monarch butterfly, I want you to think, when we're looking at how it goes through its cycle of life, how would this evolve? How in the world would this evolve? And how would it know it needed to do all these things? And it'll make sense as we go through it. So 1, metamorphosis. The butterfly goes through a 4-stage process called metamorphosis. Egg to larva to pupa to adult. And there's kind of the pictures of it, the egg, the caterpillar basically, cocoon, and then out comes a butterfly and starts the cycle over. The egg. It begins life as a tiny, brilliantly designed egg that the female butterfly attaches to the exact type of vegetation needed by the caterpillar. In the case of the monarch butterfly, the plant is always the milkweed. The female is equipped to find the right plant in the right condition. The special glue she produces holds the egg securely in all types of weather. The creature that emerges from the egg is a larva or caterpillar. It is an eating machine that increases its weight 3,000 times in 20 days, doubling in size about every 12 hours. That's crazy. That's some growth. So here's the caterpillar hatching. That guy just goes to town. All right, this would be like a human baby increasing from 8 pounds to 24,000 pounds in less than 2 weeks. That's crazy, right? You're like, wow, that's what's happening. Okay, that's the comparison there. The monarch caterpillar eats only milkweed. This is interesting, which is poisonous to other insects. It sequesters the poisonous substance and retains it through the metamorphosis process. Remember that later when you think about this, into the butterfly stage. For this reason, the butterfly is protected from being eaten by predators because it maintains or it sequesters that poisonous substance from the milkweed. The caterpillar has 3 pairs of true legs and up to 6 pairs of prolegs. The prolegs have rings of tiny hooks called crochets that help the caterpillar grip the leaves and stems of plants. The creature's brain and nervous system control the extremely complex coordinated movements of its legs. As the caterpillar grows, it casts off its outer skin layer 5 times. This is called molting, and it is necessary to accommodate its rapidly increasing size. Every part of this process is exceedingly complex. So Paul Nelson from Biola University in a Metamorphosis DVD said this: there are sensors in the skin of the caterpillar that detect the amount of pressure or strain being put on the skin, and when that is too great, they send a signal to the brain, which then releases a hormone that causes molting. All right. How did that happen? How did evolution know that that needed to happen? Why would that need to happen? Like, why would it even do that? Why would it go through that? When the caterpillar molts, it sheds its entire head capsule with its 6 eye lenses and spinneret. Thus, there must be 4 or 5 different head capsules made, each one being bigger to accommodate the growing caterpillar. During the caterpillar stage, imaginal cell clusters appear at various locations in its body, and these contain the genetic information for the future butterfly. When it has grown to the right size, the caterpillar finds a proper location to enter the pupa stage. It uses its eyes and other complex sensors to locate the right place, spins a silk pad, and hangs from this by its prolegs. After a day or two, the caterpillar molts the final time, but this time it forms something completely different. So there it is, the skin coming off of it. At this stage, the mysterious cremaster appears. This is an absolutely essential step since it has been hanging by its prolegs, but these will be shed with the final molting. When the skin of the molt is pushed to the top, a hole is uncovered, and through this, the stalk-like cremaster protrudes and attaches itself to the silk pad. So on the outer end is a bowl with microscopic hooks to facilitate the attachment. So you have the silk pad, the crochets, and then the cremaster. I'm just going to go back so we can see that that's that. Okay? So under microscope, that's what it looks like. After the cremaster is attached, the caterpillar rotates clockwise 3 times to thrust the cremaster hooks deeper into the pad. Why would it do that? How did it know it needed to do that? I mean, just all of this stuff is just like, how does evolution explain any of this? And then the answer is going to be like, well, it just did it, right? Millions of years, it just did it, right? They can't explain it. Well, how did you ever get a butterfly? Why would you get a butterfly? Why couldn't the caterpillar just live its life like that and die? It'll make sense later as we go through this. So it then removes the prolegs from the pad and convulses to cast off the old outer skin, which is necessary so the butterfly will not be deformed and so it can exit the pupa. The appearance of the cremaster at just the right time and its successful insertion into the silk pad is essential for the survival of the butterfly. And it accomplishes this amazing task when it is blind and has no external sensory organs. There it is. Like, everything about this as we go through this should like scream to us, wow, that's amazing design right there. That's creation. That's God. After a few hours, the pupal skin hardens. Inside the pupa, this is crazy, the caterpillar's body and organs and even its very cells dissolve into a cellular liquid referred to as soup. So it turns into just a liquid, like a goo. They call it soup. This is what happens. So it's a caterpillar and then it turns into soup. Cell death is programmed. If you kill the wrong cells, you're in deep trouble. It's very carefully engineered. Like, look at the language that's being used to describe this. You're going to save some of the cell population, so you have to know where you're going to end up before you start. So you have to save some of the cell population so that it can do what it needs to do to get to the next part. But look at it says you have to know where you're going to end up before you start. So this whole process has to know the end game of it. How does it know this? Why did it need to go through this whole process? How would evolution explain this? It can't. And we're going to look at the explanation that evolution gives to this process here in a bit. The soup reorganizes itself into a beautiful butterfly. When it is ready to emerge, it taps onto the front of the pupa with its legs, and the pupal skin breaks and opens in front like a door. If the pupa weren't carefully designed, it would be impossible for the delicate butterfly to emerge. And there it is. Look, that's amazing right there. By the way, it's coming out upside down. She's all right. She doesn't bother me. You're okay. Don't worry. So, I mean, that's just cool. I looked at it for a while just to look at that thing coming out. And it took me a while to figure out. It wasn't until the next picture that I realized it was upside down in there. So this is the head here. Right there. And then it just turned around. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, that is neat if you ask me. And that's where I realized, oh, that's the head down there. So the butterfly exits and suspends itself in order to pump the veins of its wings full of fluid to unfold them. I'll go back because I kept looking at it. I thought it was interesting. If you want to look more through each picture. And there it is coming out. So it also expertly joins the two segments of its proboscis to form one sucking tube. It knows how to do all of this, even though it has never existed in this form before. Okay? How does it know it needs to do that? It's never existed like this. This is all new to it. How does it know it needs to do that? The caterpillar has 16 short legs. The butterfly has 6 long articulated legs. The caterpillar has a chewing mouth and a stomach to digest vegetative matter. The butterfly has a sucking mouth, a drinking tube, and a stomach to digest nectar. The caterpillar has 6 simple eyes that see only in black and white. The butterfly has 2 compound eyes that see in color. The caterpillar has no reproductive ability. That's important right there. The caterpillar has no reproductive ability, but the butterfly has complex reproductive organs. The caterpillar crawls, the butterfly flies. The caterpillar is creepy and undesirable. The butterfly is beautiful and delightful. The entire process of metamorphosis had to be genetically programmed from the very beginning of this creature's existence. It had to know the end. It had to. Why would it go through that process? For what purpose would it do that? And since the caterpillar can't reproduce and it has to go through that whole process to make the pupa again, or the egg, how does it know it needed to do that? How would it even continue to the next generation if it didn't go through that whole process to begin with? Evolution can't answer this. Design can. Creation can. See, when we start looking at science, right, we're going to look at science. So we see all these things, and then it's like, what's the logical answer? It's not evolution. Evolution is not the logical answer to this. Creation is the logical answer to this. But there's some in their mind, because of their worldview, they say that's not even an option for an answer. We're not even going to consider that creation is the answer, because that's outside of our field of view. We won't entertain all options. We've decided what it's going to be. Therefore, it can't be that. And the reason being, if it is creation, then there's a creator, and now we're accountable to that creator. All right, the caterpillar could not have evolved into a butterfly step by step because it has no reproductive capability without going through the complete process. The pupa stage could not survive without complete genetic pre-programming. Every stage is incredibly complex and fully interrelated with every other stage. So from that Metamorphosis DVD, by its very nature, metamorphosis is an all or nothing proposition. Throughout biological history, its success has hinged upon the immediate availability of a full set of instructions, including genes, proteins, and the developmental program. It needed all of it. Once you're committed to the chrysalis stage, there is no going back. You have to complete the transition. A caterpillar that is equipped to go 10%, 25% through metamorphosis is no way through metamorphosis. You have to recreate adult legs, adult antenna, adult eyes. You have to change the shape of the brain and the connection to the organs. You have to reformat the gut. If you get the eyes right but the gut wrong, it's a failure as a butterfly. If you get the wings right and the legs right but the muscles don't attach, the butterfly is going nowhere. It's dead. How does evolution explain this? How did it get through this process? How did it happen? You begin to see the depths of the problem. Metamorphosis, if it came into existence at all by an undirected process, had to have done so in one fell swoop. There's no mistakes. Can't mess up. Not once. To create a process like metamorphosis, you'd need a totally different type of cause than undirected natural selection, which is what they claim brought evolution, right? Something that could see a distant target, keep that target in focus, and provide all the resources necessary to hit the bullseye on the first shot. The only cause that could accomplish this is an intelligent agent. Migration. One variety of the monarch flies 2,500 to 3,000 miles from Canada and northern USA to central Mexico. So there's their flight patterns, okay? That's a journey. The generation that flies to Mexico is called the Methuselah generation because it is programmed to live for 6 to 8 months rather than a few weeks that is typical. The migration takes about 2 months, and the butterflies overwinter in trees in a mountainous area, with millions of them congregated in a few acres. The butterflies return to the same tree where their forebears overwintered generations before they were born. Okay? It'll start to make sense, this whole migration. They find this exact location without any guide other than genetic programming. Their forebears who overwintered the previous year died long before the Methuselah generation was born. So this is just programmed into them. It's not like they've made the journey a couple times and then they die. It's like, no, they make part of the journey, have offspring, and the offspring continues the journey with back and forth. It just goes back and forth, and wherever they're at in the process, they just know where to go next. In March, the butterflies leave Mexico and fly north for some distance, mate, lay eggs, and die. The caterpillars hatch, go through the metamorphosis, then the new butterflies unerringly continue the migration north. They know exactly where they are on the migration route and where they need to go. It is the second or third generation that completes the migration and arrives back in the northern areas from where their forebears originated. Scientists have found that the butterfly uses a combination of a sun compass, skylight cues, a circadian clock, and magnetic sensing to maintain its direction. But understanding these things to some degree does nothing to explain how such breathtakingly complex biological equipment and such a process could evolve. I mean, just reading this is like, this is impossible to evolve. This is not going to evolve. The Secular Monarch Butterfly website, here it is, okay, uses the term magic to describe the butterfly's life cycle and migration because it is so mystifying and inexplicable by evolutionary terms. In fact, it's not magic, it is divine. That's how the evolutionists describe that process. It's magic. It's the best we can come up with is it's magic. We don't know. Voodoo, we don't know what type of magic, it's just magic, okay? That's how they described it. All right, beauty. Butterflies are so beautiful they have been called flying flowers, and they truly are. They're amazing. Every one of the 20,000 species have different color patterns, and every one of them have different shaped wings. If I was the greatest artist in the world, there is no way I could come up with all of these patterns. Ronald Bonder, Butterfly World, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That one's pretty neat right there. The butterfly's wings are covered with millions of shingle-like overlapping scales, which create the color and patterns. Lepidoptera, the Latin term for butterflies, means scaly. Some colors, like the red and white on these wings, derive from pigmented scales. The iridescent colors, like the deep blue, derive from reflective scales that ingeniously refract a particular wavelength of light. That's just incredible. There are tens of thousands of scales for every square centimeter of wing, and each scale was a living cell until a day or two before the butterfly emerged from its pupa. We have found by using the electron microscope that there are structures that can have no more variation than, I think that's 400 thousandths millimeters, a wonderful testament to God's design. That's like nothing. Like they needed an electron microscope to measure that so it can get the right color. The reason for this tight tolerance is the very short wavelengths of visible light. In order to reflect just the right color at every point in the pattern, the scales must be just the right thickness for constructive interference at just that color to occur. The scales also act as tiny solar panels to provide heat to warm the flight muscles of the cold-blooded creature. I will pick up with that next week. We're going to stop right there.